right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the life of a man who literally rewrote the laws of the cosmos, Johannes Kepler. This is the guy who gave us the actual rules for how the planets move, a true legislator of the heavens. This quote here, Kepler actually wrote it for his own epitaph, and it just perfectly sums up his entire story, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got this career of absolutely brilliant, out-of-this-world discoveries, and on the other, a life on Earth that was just filled with tragedy. So where do we start? Well, our story doesn't begin with cold, hard science. Nope. It starts with a young, deeply religious, and pretty sickly guy who was convinced he could find God's divine blueprint hidden somewhere up in the stars. This guy had a rough start. He was born premature into a family that was kind of falling apart, and then a bout with smallpox permanently damaged his eyesight and his hands. But his gift for mathematics, it was absolutely undeniable. It was like the same illness that scarred his body just couldn't touch his incredible mind for numbers. So his first big work, the Mysterium Cosmographicum, lays out this just stunning model of the solar system. He had this wild idea that the orbits of the 6 planets we knew about back then were perfectly separated by these 5 perfect geometric shapes, the Platonic solids. It was mystical, it was beautiful, and, well, it was totally wrong. But you can see right away what drove him. He was desperately trying to find the mathematical harmony in God's creation. Okay, so Kepler's mystical dream was about to have a serious reality check. It was about to collide head-on with a mountain of hard data, all thanks to a very tense but totally fateful partnership with the greatest observational astronomer of the time. So, in the year 1600, Kepler packs his bags and heads to Prague to work with the one and only Tycho Brahe. And boy, was this a clash of titans. You had Tycho, the obsessive observer with decades of the most precise data ever collected, and then you had Kepler, the genius theorist who could actually figure out what it all meant. Let's just say their partnership was tense, full of friction, full of suspicion, but it was the collaboration that would change everything. And then bam, in a crazy twist of fate, Tycho suddenly dies. Just like that, Kepler becomes the new imperial mathematician, and this is the crucial part. He inherits Tycho's treasure trove of observations. So now, with the best data on the planet in his hands, he gets handed the single hardest problem in all of astronomy, figuring out the orbit of Mars. He actually called this his war on Mars. And this war, well, it would consume him for years. But it would also lead him to a discovery that would completely shatter 2,000 years of scientific belief. He tried everything. For nearly a decade, he crunched the numbers again and again, trying to force Mars's orbit to fit a perfect circle. Because, that's what everyone from the ancient Greeks on down believed. But the math just wouldn't cooperate. It was off by a tiny amount, just 8 arcminutes. Now, anyone else might have just shrugged and said, close enough. Not Kepler. He trusted Tycho's data too much. He knew that tiny little error was hiding a huge secret. And then finally, in his 1609 masterpiece, Astronomia Nova, the New Astronomy, he did it. He threw out the perfect circle. He realized planets don't move in circles at all. They move in ellipses. And let me tell you, this wasn't just about swapping out one shape for another. This was fundamentally changing our picture of the entire universe. And he wasn't done. He also figured out that planets don't even move at a steady speed. They actually speed up when they get closer to the sun and slow way down when they're farther away. And his second law? It's the beautiful piece of math that describes that change in speed perfectly. You have to understand what a huge deal this was. It was a full-blown revolution. This idea of the perfect circle in the heavens had dominated science for 2,000 years, all the way back to Aristotle. And just like that, it was gone. Astronomy wasn't just about drawing pretty shapes anymore. It was becoming a real physical science based on dynamics. But here's the tragic part. Just as Kepler is bringing this incredible clarity to the heavens, his own life down on Earth is just descending into an absolute nightmare of chaos, war, and superstition. Just look at this timeline. It's insane. Right at the absolute peak of his scientific career, he has to drop everything and spend 6 years fighting to save his own mother from being accused of witchcraft. Think about that. He's writing the laws for the planets, and at the same time, he's writing hundreds of pages of legal briefs to fight medieval superstition in a courtroom. All of this while the 30 Years' War is raging, he's not getting paid, and he's literally writing horoscopes for people just to make ends meet. And yet, through all of that personal hell, through all the chaos of war, Kepler never stopped looking for that cosmic order.
He just couldn't. And he was about to find the final and maybe the most beautiful piece of the whole puzzle.
So in 1619, in a book he perfectly named The Harmony of the World, he unveils his third law. It's this gorgeous piece of math that connects a planet's distance from the sun to how long it takes to go around it. Basically, it's a single, elegant rule that ties the entire solar system together in a predictable, beautiful way. This was the grand finale. And for Kepler, this wasn't just a formula, not at all. He truly believed he had finally heard it, the music of the spheres, the divine harmony that God used to build the universe. It was the answer to the question he'd been asking his whole life, ever since he was a young man sketching out those platonic solids.
But his triumph was so short-lived. In 1630, he's 58 years old, and he's traveling on a worn-out horse in the freezing cold, just trying to collect years of back pay he was owed. He catches a fever, and he dies. And the final tragedy? The man who found eternal harmony in the stars was buried in a grave that was completely destroyed by the war soon after. His final resting place, and that epitaph he wrote for himself, were lost forever.
So his life ends in tragedy, and his grave is lost to history. But the work he left behind? Well, it would cast a shadow so long and so powerful that it became the very foundation for all of modern physics and astronomy. I mean, his legacy is just massive. His Rudolphine tables were the most accurate star charts in the world for over a century. He even wrote a novel that was published after he died called Somnium, about a trip to the moon. It's now considered the first ever work of science fiction. But the biggest thing, of course, is that about 50 years later, Sir Isaac Newton himself would take Kepler's 3 laws and use them as the critical stepping stone to figure out his universal law of gravitation. You could say Kepler built the entire platform for Newton to stand on.
So you have to wonder, right? Kepler spent his whole life searching for this simple, divine perfection in the heavens. And what he found instead was a universe that was imperfect, with its messy elliptical orbits and complex physical rules. But maybe, just maybe, that messy, mathematical, and complicated truth he uncovered is actually way more profound and even more beautiful than the simple perfection he was looking for all along.